Folks, I love it.
Hello and welcome to the LC Transfer Room live stream. Very glad to have you all join us today. Looking at you post match from today's last Liverpool preseason match of this preseason campaign. Looking forward to Chelsea match on Sunday. My name is Rigo and I'm joined today by Dan and Race. I'll check in with you, Dan, first. How's it going for you today?
Doing good, man. How about yourself?
Doing great, doing great. Preseason victory, looking a little shaky, but not too bad. How's it going for you, Race?
Doing well. Hoping that season starting here this coming week. Looking forward to it. Finally get some real games going.
Definitely. Before we get to the real games, let's quickly touch on today's last preseason match, of course. Liverpool winning 3-1. Goals by Salah, Jota, and Lucho Diaz as well, rounding it out. All right, I'll go to you, Race, first. What were your impressions on the match today? What jumped out to you first?
Yeah, it looked definitely looked a little sloppy in the beginning. Of course, 3 goals there inside the first, I think, 10 minutes it was. And of course, we scored 2 of them, and off a corner just kind of made a little bit of a mess there, but we pounced at the opportunity. Salah did, and then the goalkeeper for them, they made an error, and we capitalized on that. So good to see us capitalizing on those errors, certainly. And when you look at this lineup too, of course, we have our first game this Sunday, and you can basically, this is most likely what we're going to be lining up with, on Sunday, bar, we can debate on, who's going to start at number 9. It's going to be Jota, will be Nunez. Of course, you had McAllister playing as the 6 today because Curtis Jones, had a little bit of a knock, so he didn't really feature as much. They're being very precautious with it, as they should be in preseason. So it was interesting to see that decision there, and of course Gakpo in midfield as well. I think that might be a little bit more, that we might see that more because he's been playing a little more midfield in the preseason. Of course, with our attacking options up front, that's a position that they'll just get him more minutes on the field, and I think that would and he looked pretty good in that position. I think he's is just an incredible player. I think can play multiple positions for us, and wherever he lines up, I'm going to be excited to see him play. But I mean, I'm trying to think, with this game is just more of the same we've seen. Of course, we didn't have the attacking, I don't think, as much on fire as we were in previous games, but still had some good moments. And of course, Bendo coming on the second half, just what a preseason he's having. Just maybe not, I think he just has the 1 goal so far, but he's just looked like a real bright spot on that right side or wherever he's been. And of course, I'm sure we'll talk about what the plan for him is. I'm sure we're looking to keep him for this season. He'll play more of a role for us, but still wouldn't rule out a loan move for him potentially. But yeah, I mean, we're at the point now where the everything's kind of getting finalized here, and we're getting ready to go. I can't think of anything that really stood out to me necessarily. It was just with the lineup and all that. Just we'll see where we look on Sunday then.
Definitely. Some good positives to come out of this match. Some obvious negatives that have been creeping up and haven't disappeared since last year, with regards to just being played through by 1 or 2 simple passes or just over the top on that right side, on Trent's side. But definitely some positives to look forward to. Just want to build a little bit more on Gakpo in midfield. Dan, do you think Gakpo is a proper solution in midfield? Can we roll with that lineup, or does that leave us a little bit too top heavy and not defensively stout enough?
I mean, I think it will work fine. It's kind of a little throwback to a few years ago. We used to play 4-2-4. We had Jota, Firmino, Mane, and Salah all in the same team. I think we went to City away one year. That was the COVID year, and it ended up being 1-1. I mean, I definitely think it can work as a solution. Definitely a temporary solution if you're not going to play Curtis, and if Thiago's not available and Bajcetic is not available as well. I do think that what Gakpo does bring is kind of what we want from a midfielder. If you take Gakpo's entire traits, his dribbling, his progressiveness, his pressing, his height. He's pretty much essentially what we would want from a midfielder. Probably someone that's
Ball
more
striking.
Yeah, his ball striking is really, really good. We love Gakpo's balls here. They're the best balls we've seen. I do want to echo what Ray said earlier, which I think is a good observation, which is that, and I think you touched on this too, Rigo, is that what we've seen a lot from this preseason is that the fitness is good, the pressing is good, it's back. They've been really, really tenacious. They've been really, really good at like carving chances out of nothing and have predominantly been able to finish them. There is still that weakness where if you've seen every preseason game we've played, from going all the way back to Karlsruhe and now to SV Darmstadt, is that what a lot of teams are doing is that they're playing very direct. They're bypassing midfield, and that's probably what we're going to see a lot of this year, especially against lower side teams. Is that they're going to try and do this, not try to play through the midfield press, but try to get into his position and play that curve ball. The goal they score is exactly like that, where they play back to goal, pivot, and then just play a loose ball. Loose ball on that curve ball around the corner. And in that instance, the offside trap would have worked, but Konate broke it early. Like the line,
it looked very close on that one.
Yeah.
It didn't really show too much on the replay. I thought initially it might have been off, but obviously we are here in the preseason.
Yeah, and I know it sounds controversial, but that's not something that a defensive mid or a center back is going to fix. That's just coaching and like structure and shape and everything else, and it's a byproduct of the shape that they're playing as of right now. No, obviously against Chelsea, I don't think we're going to play this exact same shape. What I mentioned earlier with Gakpo playing midfield, it may look something like a 4-3-3/4-2-4, where Gakpo is playing as an 8, but he'll drift into the forward position. If MO SALAH is playing, he'll probably drift to the right as well for Salah, because there was a situation where Salah was playing defensive mid and MO SALAH was playing right wing for like 2 minutes as well. I mean, it's exciting, and we're just gonna have to see what happens at Chelsea, what team he goes with, if he plays Jones or anything else. What I will say though about McAllister, Maka in general, is that we've seen that he's probably the best midfielder we have next to Thiago. And actually, I think he's just a healthier version of Thiago, because pretty much everything he does is what Thiago's really good at. His awareness, his tactical awareness, his ability to see passes, his ability to deliver passes as well. So, I mean, I'm really excited about, the season coming up, transfers aside for a second, because I know we're going to get back to this a little later. It is really exciting because we obviously have like a team full of just young, hungry pressers who are very technical and are very multifunctional. And I think that's something that we've lacked for a few years, and now we have it going into a new season.
With Gap, without a true DM at this point, should we kind of forego the experiment with Trent inverting? What do you think on that, Race? I just feel like with our midfield additions at this point and no true DM to kind of play in a double with him, we might end up burning out Maka just like we did with Thiago last season.
Yeah, I was trying to think when we first brought in Thiago, he was playing the number 6 for us, but that was just kind of out of necessity when he came in, because we just didn't have anyone for that spot. So now with McAllister, it's kind of the same situation where he can play the 6, I think, but ideally long term we probably want him to play more higher up the field. But we've got no one to blame but ourselves, because we put ourselves in this position for not signing the 6. So we're just we're trying to, not saying cope, but just we're accepting these other solutions, other ideas that we're bringing to the table here. And I certainly right now, after seeing today's game, I think McAllister come Sunday is going to be in that number 6 for us. He's going to play in that role. I think it very well could be the same midfield here, because again, our other options, we tried Curtis Jones in the last game. It wasn't really as good. With McAllister in this number 6, it definitely looked a little better.
You kind of feel like his positioning and the way he sees the game allows him to be in better spots. But at Brighton, he had Caicedo as the ball-winning partner there for him. I'm not sure if Trent should should be that person sitting next to him at that point. I kind I feel like we're kind of defeating the purpose of playing Trent in midfield and shifting him up.
Yeah, exactly. And I think McAllister at moments had, he had some good take ons with the ball, and he went in for some challenges as well, which is also another thing too that we need. We can't just have these passive midfielders, just kind of not willing to put their foot in. I know it's just a preseason game, but McAllister a few times there definitely came in for some challenges. And of course, over time, that will just become more of a, he'll get better at it and not necessarily fall all the time, but win the ball fairly and whatnot. So it still doesn't change the fact that we need to bring in someone. We need to bring in number 6, ideally Lavia or whoever it may be. But with Trent out there, being inverted and whatnot. And we saw how good worked for us at the end of last season, and I think the more we can kind of replicate that, I think the more we can get him more involved in the game and not just kind of sitting on the right side. Of course, we have to worry about the space he leaves in behind with Konate coming over, whoever that is. That's always going to be a concern, but I think we would definitely take having Trent being a little more on the front foot and giving us more going forward.
And for you, Dan, do you think McAllister at this point might go down as the best signing of the summer, considering the value that we got for that deal?
Oh, absolutely. As of right now, especially going forward. Now, obviously, we haven't signed any other players. I think that McAllister he's just so good. He's just so multifunctional. He's so technical. He reads the game intelligently. He's physical for being a small lad. And, it's really, it's interesting. Race brought up how he played a double pivot with Caicedo at Brighton. If you look at how Brighton play, both Caicedo and McAllister very much had very similar duties where if they were both sitting, they would both destroy and play make. That's kind of the unique quirkiness of Brighton, is that all of them in some way are either pressers or controllers or passers to some degree. They're not strictly one type of player. They pretty much play very hybrid, specific skills-based goals. I read a comment somewhere saying that, speaking of our other signing, Dominic Soboslai, and I think it's been a very interesting preseason for him. He's a very explosive player, but I think we've seen him be very tactically disciplined, very sound on the ball.
His pressing has impressed me most of all.
His pressing,
aside from the corner deliveries in today's match, which were just beautiful, but his pressing jumped out to me most of all.
Yeah, and again, talking about ball striking, Soboslai is a really, really good ball striker as well. I just think it's interesting because I think Soboslai's done a lot in terms of the little things you would want from a player like him without that pop that maybe a Ben Doak has had this preseason, or at times Nunez has had it this preseason as well. And I think Mac will be the best signing no matter who they sign going forward. Even if they sign, hypothetically, if Lavia comes in, they get an Andre or a Gravenberg, and they sign, let's say, the center back from Lyon or Ignacio. I can't remember his last name. Gonzalo Ignacio. That's his name. That's his last name. Ignacio is his last name.
Yeah, it's from Sporting.
Yeah. And regardless of who they sign, I think McAllister is going to be the best signing and probably one of the smartest signings. And I think it's going to be the best signing on the window. I know a lot of teams have made other players, but in terms of what he can do, I don't think there's any player that is as a complete package as McAllister is, and he's only 23, 24. He's the perfect age. 24. So there's no one else that can really do this right now. It's like signing a young Thiago essentially.
Yeah, definitely. I think bang for buck. We're lucky to get that one through. Obviously, we're having difficulty closing down a $50 million deal. So getting McAllister in for 35, much needed, and he's showing out definitely the skills that he has and how much of an important player he's going to be. But we're still waiting on on further signings to further reinforce. Still talking about today's game, and I just want to remind everyone, if you're here, make sure to leave a like on the video, and if you haven't already done so, subscribe as well. But to expound more on this match as well, let's talk a little bit of our other signing, Dominic Szoboszlai. Obviously, he missed one of our matches due to tending to a hurt ankle in Singapore trip, but he's back now. What has impressed you or not impressed you so far with his play, Race?
I think the way Dan described him was pretty good in saying he's an explosive player, because I think, what we've been lacking from our team and our midfield, or our team lately, has been, goals from midfield, a real attacking threat. And he certainly provides that. He's a great, it's kind of like he's a little, similar to Gakpo too, a great striker of the ball, and gets, I think he had one shot today that was narrowly missed. There was another one I wish he would have taken the shot. I think he passed, I think it was to Trent outside. And, he definitely has an eye for goal. And right now he's just trying to find his footing. And, of course we're always going to have three dynamic attackers in front of him. And he's just going to be right behind them, ready to pounce at whatever chance there is. And, again, we have to remember how, it takes time for some of these players to come into our team, with our intensity, our pressing and all that. And he did look good with, his pressing today. I certainly have high hopes for him. I certainly think he's going to be an incredible player for us, and I think he's a couple years younger than McAllister. Is he?
He's the exact age for you.
He's 22. Yeah, Dominic Szoboszlai is 22, and he just turned 22, I believe.
Yeah, and he costs more than McAllister too with his release clause. So I think maybe he's got a little higher ceiling than McAllister does. But I'm certainly excited for what he can provide for us. And, again, it's just all about, finding, his role in this team. And there certainly is a role for him. And, I'm just, it's good to have that attacking threat from midfield, because really the last, I think, goal scoring threat we had from midfield was Coutinho. And you saw how good that was for us, and wherever, Szoboszlai lines up, whether it's on the right or left side, I think he'll probably be more on the right side. Just really intrigued to see what he can provide for us this season.
Definitely. What about you, Dan? Impressions on Dominic so far?
Oh yeah, just to echo what Ray said, I actually think he's probably the closest thing we've had to an Oxlade-Chamberlain. That makes any sense. Like, he's very direct. He's very loves a shot on him as well. I do think he's more technically disciplined than Chamberlain was when he got to Liverpool, because you remember Chamberlain came from Arsene Wenger's Arsenal for years, and so they had to deprogram him from the way Arsenal played and kind of turn him into a Klopp player. And Chamberlain was at Arsenal for, I think, 5 or 6 years, since he was 18 or 17. He was there for a long time before they kind of coached out of him. I think he's done very, very well. I think his fitness has been incredible. I think that, we had that thing where he just like turned his ankle and everyone started freaking out that, oh God, it's happening again. And then turns out it was fine. And, that's been the good thing of this preseason, is the fact that we haven't really had any major injury scares. Have been very, very good at keeping players fit, not pushing them, not trying to, get anyone injured. By this time last year, when the season started, we had like 6 or 7 injuries. We went from we pretty much had the same full squad, and then we were going into the season with like 17 or 18 fit players. So like,
we were naming 2 goalkeepers to the match day squad.
Yeah,
people.
It was not a good start to the year last year. Last year, for as rough as last year was, the start was the roughest with just carrying so many injuries. I mean, they didn't even register Oxlade-Chamberlain and Keita for the Champions League for that first round. I think Szoboszlai is going to be a very weird one. I think we're, like I said, like that explosiveness, that pop is what we see, and I think the fact that he hasn't been doing that, I think some people may get like, well, why did we spend 70 million euros on this man? And I think that's understandable, but what you've seen from Szoboszlai, and I was reading a few the comments too. I believe Vanessa said this with like he needs to be freed up from covering Trent. What I've seen from Szoboszlai is that he's pretty much doing exactly what Henderson would do. Be very sensible with the ball, covering, pressing very well, and but he's being very, very good at like getting possession and maintaining it. When Henderson started getting a bit older, there was this issue where he was just slightly behind everything. So he was pressing, but he was just a little bit behind, or he would win the ball back.
If you don't get there on time, there's no real point.
Yeah.
And towards the end, he was afraid of putting a foot in. And that's one thing with Dominic got a yellow card today as well. Between both him and McAllister, they don't seem to they seem aggressive in going in to win the ball, and that's something that definitely we've been missing.
Yeah, and they're both really good progressive passers, and I think that's what we're going to see from MO SALAH is like free kicks and everything else. And once all the players kind of get in, and once the transfer window closes, and we have a greater sense of what the season's going to look like, I think you'll start to see him pop more and more and more, and kind of start being that that explosive player we expect. Kind of similar to how Gakpo was, where it took him a while to kind of adapt into the team, and now Gakpo just
Definitely. It takes some time. Let me just ask you the quick poll question there. Should Dominic take over corners and free kicks? I'll go to you, Dan, first. Yes, no?
Yes.
Okay. What about you, Race? What do you think on that?
It's certainly open for corners. Free kicks, I think just another hat in the ring there with, I think, Salah or Trent, and then you can Szoboszlai. I think either one of those would be fine with me. But corners, yes, I think so.
One reason I do bring it up as well, and something I was thinking about during the match also, with regards to the throw-ins. We tend to wait for Andy or Trent to run up and do the throw-ins for us, depending on which side of the field it's on. And I feel sometimes, it lets the defense settle down, and we don't catch them off guard as much or out of position. And B, and this happened in the match today, with Trent throwing it in, he's further upfield, which then takes him away from the space he's supposed to be. He's meant to be defending, and then it's just everyone trying to cover up a hole. I think it kind of puts us at a disadvantage sometimes. I don't know what your thoughts are on the subject there, but I feel like other folks can take the free kicks or the throw in sometimes. But
well, we do have there is a throw-in coach, I think, in the team, and they
did not renew his contract.
They not renew his contract, yeah.
Oh, they didn't? Okay. Yeah. Oh, wow. Used to.
But for those of you joining in, make sure to like and subscribe this video and channel. We are very thankful and appreciative of your engagement and your likes, obviously. All right. As well, still speaking on the match, I kind of want to go to the most exciting aspect coming through the ranks, and that would be Ben Doak. Ben Doak came on and came in for Salah and absolutely terrorized that left side of Darmstadt's defense. Nearly had a goal, nearly set up a couple. How high do you think Doak's ceiling is, Race? Can he get up to Salah levels? Can he push to claim that starting spot once Salah, hangs it up?
Well, to think that he could approach Salah's level is a big ask and a very aggressive prediction of him. But he certainly looks the part of a player with some talent, and he's only 17, 18 years old. I don't think he's had a real season of senior football under his belt. So to already look like this without really touching the field much, I think it's very exciting to see what he could provide. And I know the discussion around him will be do we loan him out or we keep him in for this season? And I might be on the what not most would agree, but I actually think loaning him out would be my decision, because I know with Salah, he's got that the right wing spot nailed down. That's his spot. And you can say that we want to tone back his minutes. We got the Europa League this year. You can give Ben Doak a run in that. But until I see any indication that Salah's not gonna want to start every game, I'm not gonna assume that's the case. So I don't playing time would be limited. With Doak, of course, you bring him on as a sub during games and whatnot. But I think the right wing is kind of where his position is for now. Of course, he can. I'm sure he could go on the left side and be no problem. But right now, he just doesn't seem like the type to really cut inside. Although he could certainly develop that. Again, he's so young. He can certainly do that for us. But I would certainly if we keep him and we give him minutes, there's no wrong answer here. Just personally for me, I'd like to see him kind of get that consistent game time, because I think when you get that consistent game time and that's going to come, I think it just provides a different level of development to yourself, because you can, okay, I'm going to go into this game, I'm going to work on this, I can work on this, in a team with Liverpool, again, with our aspirations and what we want to accomplish and the players we have ahead of him, that can be a little more frustrating and a little more, hard to come by. And again, he's just so
17.
young into his he's so young into his career. So I keep stressing that part, but that's what we got to think about here. But that's what excites us about him, because we're talking about him already. Can he become a squad player already at such a young age? And of course, there were some take on today. He just blew by the defenders. I mean, incredible composure, really, really direct player, fearless again at that age, to be so fearless. Certainly looks to be one, if not for the present this season, having a role, certainly down the road will absolutely. And, of course we want Salah to be here for as long as possible, but you talk about having that, that backup ready in place. And again, of course, if injury happens, whatever, you have someone that can provide a spark on that side. So I'm really encouraged by this whole preseason of Ben Doak. I'm sure he'll get some run in here in these first few games that we have before, if there is a decision to be made on if we do keep him or loan him out to, ideally, I think, a championship side. Although I don't think, unless there's another club that's interested in. But really, really good season, really good preseason so far from Doak.
All right, so race is on. Let's loan Doak out. What about you? Dan? What do you think?
I would agree with Race if we didn't have the AFCON this year, but we have AFCON coming in January and February, so we know Mo Salah is going to at least be out until probably like end of February and March, depending on, because Egypt always usually go to the semifinal/final. I do think there's an argument for loaning Doak out next year when you're back in the Champions League, and if we have Salah in for the. If we have Salah for one more year after that, I think there's an argument that you can loan him out next year. But for this season, it just makes so much sense just to keep him in the squad. You don't want to create a situation where, I think right now we have 5 first-team forwards. Doak would be the 6. I don't want to create a situation where you're making even more work for yourself to potentially have a replacement either in the midfield, defense, or in the attack for the summer when they already need to, as again, we're probably going to that they need to already do so much work as it is. I do get your argument, Race, and I do agree with it kind of like in a very abstract sense. I just think that as of right now, with AFCON coming up and with the amount of games we'll be playing January to May, depending on where we're going to be at, if we're challenging for the league, if we're challenging in the Europa League, which we probably will be in the round of 32 by that point, it'd just be so much sense to have him in the squad.
Yeah, I'm of that opinion as well. It makes no sense, especially putting Haler's comment there. We have the thinnest squad currently in the Premier League with 22 players. We have no natural right wing option. If Salah were to get injured, it'd be another case of fitting a square peg into a round hole. Elliott's not equipped enough speed-wise to play our style in the right wing. We would have to shift to accommodate him. So I think Doak is the natural relief for Salah. And as you mentioned, Dan, we have AFCON coming up in January. Egypt probably will make a run again. They went to the finals last time. They'll probably make a run again. And kind of need to stay covered for that. The matches do pick up after the new year as well. So it just makes all the sense in the world to have Doak. We have 5 substitutes that we can bring in every match. There should be enough minutes to go around at either flank and keep these guys fresh. And again, we have a super thin squad. As much turnover as you can, getting them, keeping them fresh, and not burning them out is what's needed. We can't really afford any major injuries, and Mo Salah being probably the 1A behind Allison as far as injuries that we don't want to sustain. Once again, make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. Still touching on Mo Salah, a couple of reports came out over the weekend that Saudi clubs were circling around, seeing if they could tempt Mo into signing for them. Around 180 million pounds for a 2-year deal was floated, with a super tiny transfer sum of 60 million pounds floated around as well. Race, Mo Salah, any chance he's leaving before the window closes?
None. 0. Zilch. He is not going anywhere. Thanks for your interest, Saudi Arabia, but he's not getting anytime soon. But this is kind of a thing that we're gonna see, depending on how long this the Saudi Arabian League continues to throw the money out there of reports of they're gonna offer, they're gonna test the waters. They're gonna throw out crazy offers left and right. Of course, 60 million is a joke of a fee, but they're just gonna keep trying and see who's gonna bite. Who's gonna bite at this, take the big money and the payday and whatnot. And so it's worked for some players, but I think Salah, we see the ambition that he has, the respect he has for the club, the hard work, just the quality of person he is. I don't think he would, in a sellout type move would do that, especially he's got so many good years, so many good years left in this team. And of course, just signed a contract with us last summer. So yeah, these reports that we see from Saudi Arabia, of course, you look, sometimes you see them and you have to wonder a little bit, okay, let's hope this player doesn't really want to go. But in the end, I think we're all pretty confident that no offer for Salah is to be entertained anytime soon.
So not this season, and his agent did come out as well and refute those reports, saying Mohamed wouldn't have committed to Liverpool or signed that extension if he was planning on leaving this year. But I'll stick with your race and then kick it over to Dan. Will Mo be here next season, though? Do you think next season the temptation will be just too great? Another year of building the Saudi Arabian League. He's probably the biggest Muslim footy star in the world. Next season, do you see FSG, namely, being tempted with $150 million transfer sum?
Well, I'm trying to refresh myself with his contract. So he's signed through next season, is it? I think
we have 2 more years.
2 more years, so this year and next year. It's hard to see him. I mean, when the last contract talks with Salah, were going on, I wasn't too worried that he would leave, because again, I think, who am I to say? But again, he seems like the guy that's really ambitious and wants to win everything, and he
wants those records, right?
Yeah, he wants the records. He knows his stature with his club and how much he means to Liverpool and the Premier League as a whole. And so I tend to am of the belief that he'll be here next season, unless it would take some crazy offer. And if Ben Doak, if he really comes on and proves that he could really slot in right away and be a player for us and start. But of course, with our owners and the money at hand, who knows if it's a big fee and we would take in that money, there'd be some discussions about it if it would be a large sum. And of course, if we see any sort of form dip from Salah, which again, we haven't seen, he's still firing on all cylinders. It's hard to say right now if we would really entertain a move next summer, but for everything going right now, I think he would certainly not in any risk of moving on from moving on.
And what about you, Dan? This season, likely not, unless obviously $300 million offer came in. But for next season, do you think do you see a scenario where the temptation might be too great, or let's say we don't qualify again for the Champions League because we didn't strengthen our squad these transfer windows? Do you foresee a scenario where Mo could leave next season?
I could see it, but I think it really just comes down to what his decision is and what discussions he's had with the Liverpool hierarchy. I mean, I think it's really interesting at the end of the year that I feel like Salah was the one that had came out and said, like, this wasn't good enough. We deserve to be in Champions League, et cetera, et cetera. And it's really weird to talk about last season and going for next season because, one, we were not that far from getting into the Champions League. If just one thing went our way just a little bit better, obviously we've talked about the midfielder things, but if Nunez gets it off against Palace, there's so many like small things that happen during a season because it's just it's a season. You build a season as you go, and there are just little things that may or may not go against you. I think we're qualifying for the Champions League next year. I don't see a scenario right now where where we finish outside of it, unless half our team just, spontaneously combust, which, I don't think that's going to happen, but you never know.
It's happened to sections of the team.
It has.
And then
It has,
that season was midfield and the attackers.
Yeah, no, I don't see a scenario right now because, again, I know I've said this, and this is not just me being giving a tough thumping speech. There's no team in the Premier League that I think that is better than us on our day, like apart from really City, but City is mostly down to like Guardiola, De Bruyne, and Holland, rather than like me just fearing City as because I think all their players are better than ours. I don't think I think the difference between us and City is not that big of a gap, even though they did just sign Guardiola, who is a good player, but I think the idea is that Salah goes next year to PSG. I think that's the move that's going to happen because Mbappe is going to be gone. He's either going this summer or next summer. I don't know what PSG are going to do with him, but I feel like next summer Salah is going to go to PSG for, I think, 60 to 80 million pounds, like within that range. I do think he will go next year, but I think that'll be mostly down to the fact that he'll just get a ridiculous offer. And Salah, I think at that time will be 33 by that time. Someone correct me if I'm wrong, especially in the chat. I think it'll be 33, 32. So you do need to do a succession plan for him, and they do need to rebuild the defense. And if you're going to start rebuilding the defense and you already have an idea of what you want to do on the right wing with Ben Doak, Dominic Szoboszlai, or even Harvey Elliott, which I know he doesn't have the pace, but if he's going to play right wing and just hold his position like Mahrez did, 32. Thank you. You might as well cash in with 60 to 80, 60 with 80 million, and take that money and reinvest it into your defense and into maybe one more midfielder if you need to fill a gap. I know that's tough to say because I love Salah. He is like one of our best players in the modern era, and it's probably going to end up being. I think is he our Premier League top scorer now? He's more than
Premier League, I believe so.
Yeah. So there's obviously going to need to be a change of emphasis from Salah scoring goals to like Nunez scoring goals, or it being shared between them. But I feel like if there is going to be a year to sell Salah, it will be next year, regardless if it's Champions League, Europa League, Conference League, or we get relegated. All options are on the table. He probably will have to go next year.
I'd be sad to see it happen. He's producing at just ridiculous levels still, and he's added more of a playmaker ability to his game. He's assisting more than I think he ever has, or looking for his teammates more than he ever has. It's almost like every match he's scoring and assisting one lately. But definitely something to think about. I think we're safe for this season. I don't think we're going to get hijacked again by the Saudi League. We lost two players, which we were kind of happy to lose, thinking we're going to get some new incomings, but we're still here, not so patiently waiting. Reminder once again, make sure to like and subscribe. LFC Transfer Room, #1 fan site for Liverpool Football Club. Now to the subject of transfers and the person who's on our thumbnail for today's stream, and that would be Romeo Lavia. Came out today that Liverpool made a third offer for him, around £46 million, which was rejected by Southampton. Taking a look here, Jay Muse posted, credit to Craig Madden or Ben Jacobs. Understand that Liverpool have already made another improved offer for Romeo Lavia after the last $46 million bid was rejected. At what point, how many times can a team tell you it's 50, it's 50, it's 50 until you pay 50, Race?
I don't know, honestly. And this apparent fourth bid has just come in, I guess, in the last few minutes or so. And what was it? 46 million was the offer earlier today, which was rejected. So I haven't seen anything what this bid is necessarily, but I can't. Again, we're pinching pennies here. I don't know what our next bracket is of our offer, what the negotiations are. And again, we're not in the room, the negotiation, whatnot, but they got to get some sort of sense that they're getting close to a deal, or when they tell them, when Southampton says we're rejecting, this whatever bid, and again, they could say we're sticking with 50, or if there's some sort of compromise. I think it was James Pierce had mentioned, there's hoping to be some compromise. But again, I honestly don't know what to believe or what their plan is. I guess with this quick turnaround with a fourth offer it is somewhat encouraging because it means that we are trying more. But again, this should have been weeks ago. We should have been doing this before. This again. We shouldn't be in this mode of almost a panic buy. It seems like
this is something that we should have been doing with nothing to do with Fabinho or Henderson's deals at this point. We know we needed another DM. Now we need two with Fabinho going. So it just makes us look super ridiculous. I've never seen a transfer play out so publicly before from Liverpool from these last 5, 6, 7 years.
Yeah, for us specifically, it's like we get our business done relatively quietly and quickly when we identify a player, and getting into this sort of negotiation, it hasn't been our style recently. So maybe we're just inexperienced and we think that we can do this, but like that this isn't how a lot of clubs negotiate when they're so fixed in on a price. You can't just keep going back with 1 million, 2 million more. There has to you gotta jump in the water a little bit. You gotta do a little more than this. So hopefully, I wake up tomorrow morning and I see that a bid's been accepted or whatever, because that's how it can be sometimes. But we'll see what happens here.
What about you, Dan? Should we just straight offer the 50 if we really want him? Even Carragher came out and said, if you want the player, just pay the 50 and just wrap it up. Or should we walk away at this point? Like, this is way too public in my opinion.
I feel like if they were going to walk away, they would have walked away with the first bid. The fact that they've kept increasing it around intervals of around 5 million, I think is very interesting, because I think they've been trying to, obviously, like, you can, I think criticizing or saying that, it's penny pinching and why you're penny pinching when we're in this situation, which is totally fair. Though I do understand why they are trying to get as much value as possible. If they end up paying, let's say 48.5 and Southampton accepts, or if Southampton says no, then they have to find a side, okay, we'll have to do 50, et cetera, et cetera. I think the most annoying thing is just the amount of time it's taken, rather than the instance of like, there's been this increase in bids. And I think the reason, because it's only been 10 days since we first bid for Lavia, and it's only been roughly around 12 to almost 14 days since Fabinho and Henderson both officially left. So it's been a situation where, the Fabinho and Henderson deals, the bids coming from Saudi beginning in July, and it takes about 3 weeks for those deals to get done because of paperwork, because of all these other factors. And then, they both go, and now Liverpool in a situation where they're trying to solve that situation. And if Southampton had accepted the first bid, they would have had it done in like 2 or 3 days. We all of a sudden like, good job, good business, Liverpool. That's what we do, crack on. But it's just taking more time. And I think it's interesting how public it's been, because I don't think this is coming from Liverpool. I'm 100% sure this is coming from Southampton.
Yeah,
and the reason
I think they were expecting more of a bidding war for him, and I guess Chelsea still at a standstill trying to get Caicedo, and
because
Arsenal
Chelsea
might not need a DM with Partey staying.
Yeah.
So
So Chelsea had bid for Lavia for 50 million in January. So Southampton, I think, have been the ones that have been very vocal about this, because they're begging for someone else to come in and to put a bid in. But Lavia said he just wants to go to Liverpool, and I think that's mostly just been Southampton leaking. Southampton's the ones that's been leaking all this information to the mainstream journalists, to your patchwork journalists, to all the big names that everyone really follows, and even the smaller names. And I think it's just been one of those things where we're mostly frustrated because of just time. We just want the midfielder in now, yesterday, last week, because we lost Fabinho and Henderson, which is completely understandable. Honestly, like, it's, you pay whatever you need to pay to get Lavia. And I think it's because they obviously want him, and they don't rate another player right now to go out and get him. Otherwise, they would have already moved off from this transfer today, last week, or 2 weeks ago. So if you really want him, you're just going to have to pay whatever price you can get away with him. If they get him for 48, if they end up having to spend 50, if it's 52.5, whatever they need to pay to get him, they have to pay to get him. It may impact our other transfer business. It may not. That's their job to figure out. But, at this point, they need a midfielder more than they need to not have a midfielder. They going into the season without a recognized six is more of a risk than slightly overpaying on Lavia at this point.
Yeah, and it just leaves us without the ability to be versatile, we can't really shift back to that 4-3-3. We have no natural DM, and now with our new tactics and having Trent form a double pivot with whoever's playing the six, we don't have a natural DM there either. So we're really kind of shooting ourselves in the foot with this poor negotiating and poor planning. But we'll see. Hopefully, there is some light at the end of the tunnel. There is. We just got to get through the storm of this transfer hell that we're kind of experiencing at the
moment. And part of this too is, of course, we're bickering about getting the player and whatnot, but hopefully we kind of look at this just an afterthought. We win our first couple games, we bring in Lavia, and then it's just kind of water on the bridge type deal, which it's certainly still a possibility. But in the moment right now, I think we're all just very frustrated at, again, the glaring need in our team and our inability to get it addressed in a timely manner before the start of the season.
Yeah, it's just highly frustrating. You see Man City signing another center back that they don't really need, but another world-class talent, Josko Gvardiol, admitted Liverpool fan, and we're still here looking to get our third signing through the door this summer.
Yeah, but that Guardiola deal took a very long time for them to do, and they took weeks and weeks, 3-4 weeks, and they were also they're trying to sell Emerick Laporte as well. So, and Laporte was supposed to go to Palace, and I mean, honestly, it's just one of those things. Even if we had signed Lavia a week ago or 2 weeks ago, you're probably not going to start him against Chelsea. You might start him against Bournemouth, but I know there's a lot of anxiety around this as well. But the window doesn't close on September 1st. You just have to figure out how to win or not lose, rather, your first 4 games, and you'll be in a good position as long as you can get all your business done by September 1st.
We will see. We will see. So I did open it up to our chat here for any question or topics that they would like us to talk about before we enter the next stream. I'll go to the first one and keep putting those entries into the comments here. We'll try and tackle as many as we can before we wrap it up for today. Once again, make sure to like and subscribe. We can't repeat that enough. I'll go over to Vanessa here. Can we talk about Rob's positioning now? Yes, we can. We didn't touch on it earlier, but it's something that I think is gonna really bite us in the behind this upcoming season, and that's Andy Robertson's positioning as a left back in this 3-back system. He's still, I don't know if it's just him on impulse or if it's, again, something he's being instructed to do, to continue doing his overlaps. He was overlapping Diaz plenty, or just absolutely just moving up that left flank and leaving Virgil as well as Konate in a 2-man defense there at the back. I just can't explain it with how we're shaped right now. Once again, with 1 or 2 passes, the benefit that we had of Trent moving up to midfield to kind of solidify the center and make sure we're not being played through is just on that left side, just opening up holes on that end as well. I'm not sure how we can remedy that unless he's absolutely instructed not to move forward, or we bring in a replacement to play that position, or shift back to the 4-3-3 what we've been using for these past since Klopp has been here. What are your thoughts on it, Race, as far as Andy's positioning?
Yeah, it's been a little wild this preseason. I think, he's a player who wants to get up the field, get to the byline and send in those crosses. But with more, defensive responsibilities, with Trent, going more forward, it certainly has to, someone's got to, take Andy aside and say, hey, man, we need you a little more defensively. We need to, to buckle down here. And of course, looking at Robertson, he's been here for so long. And again, he's, been a great player for us. But you look around the squad and you wonder, okay, what player, obviously Henderson's gone, Fabinho's gone. What's kind of the next position or player that we kind of need to, look at and say, is there going to be a potential drop off here? Is there going to be, a replacement needed? And I'm not saying replace Robertson, but this is about his positioning and whatnot. It's certainly, something to monitor, something to kind of keep your eye on, I think. He's certainly a tremendous fullback in that regard, but certainly with us, having to play, 3 at the back and, Robertson, that's not really his natural, being kind of a left-sided center back necessarily. I'm sure it's a new thing for him to learn as well. So hopefully with more game time, he'll get more accustomed to it and not be so, reckless going forward, or, be more mindful of the space he leaves in behind. Because again, without a proper midfield coverage, specifically with a number 6, it's going to be a struggle at times. We don't want to be just flying around the pitch and kind of thinking back to that, 14 campaign of just, banging in the goals left and right, and kind of leaving the defense for dust. But, because that's what's, ultimately propelled us to our best times, is when our defense has been sorted. So, yeah, it's just something to look out for in Robertson. Again, I think with preseason, of course, there's just sometimes more emphasis on other things. So I won't read in too much into, a player, if a player's looking bad or something's not going right, because preseason is about, just kind of getting right and trying new things and figuring things out. So maybe this will be more of a discussion to have, if we see more of this in the first few games or kind of into the season.
And what about you, Dan? What are your thoughts on Bravo's positioning, and is it sustainable? We have a pretty tough opening schedule here, going away to Chelsea, have Bournemouth at home, Newcastle, Villa as our first 4 opening matches. Chelsea, Castle, and Villa, they're pretty tough opponents, even with Nkunku injured for Chelsea.
I think it's one of those things where obviously Robertson would not be doing it if Klopp did not tell him that he could be doing it every now and then. And obviously, I think it's interesting when he does it. So he's mostly doing it when Liverpool are transitioning from defense to attack, defense to in possession to the attacking third, and he's very much there to provide the extra man of the overlap and allows them to play that high line. And essentially, they screen a back 3. But if you've noticed, if you see the camera, it's usually Konate, Van Dijk, and Trent or McAllister. So I do think that is something that they've been planning. I don't think it's just Robinson running with his head cut off or just, forgetting what they want of him. They're trying to, at least what we've seen this preseason and last year, they're trying to keep this shape in to prevent easy transitions. And when they're not preventing transitions, they're kind of transitioning into this 3-2-5 in attack, or the 3-box-3 is shifting into a different type of possession where Robertson is given more license to run forward. And it's not every time. It's only on a handful of times as well. So I'm not really worried about it right now, just because the problem is not really our left side, and it never really has been our left side. We've done a really good job screening that area. It's the quick out around the corner into the right side, which is, it's not because Trent is a bad right back or a bad defender or a bad midfielder, and it's not because Konate isn't. That's just always where teams have planned to attack, is to be as direct as they can, get around that, and try to hit those channels. And essentially say, we're going to try and beat your press, we're going to try and beat your high line, which is part of what we do as a team in order to win possession back very quickly and transition to attack. So even though we do have, I wouldn't say tough, but very different types of games, because Chelsea are obviously going to be very young, very inexperienced. They've had a very choppy preseason. So we're playing the first day of the season, and that can go a lot of different ways, though I think there is a world
how shaky we've been defensively. I mean, we let this team just go right through us for their goal. Mudryk, Madueke, they have other options as well.
Yeah, but I don't think the way we're playing against SV Darmstadt or Bayern Munich in preseason is how they're going to play against Chelsea. And I mean that from risk as well, because I've said this all summer. I don't think they're going to play this specific shape against Chelsea. I think they're going to play a very unique, weird way against Chelsea, and then play much different against everybody else. Like Bournemouth will probably see this. Villa at home will probably see this, especially Gakpo in midfield, because it just pulls Villa their shape apart, which is what they're really good at. And that's what Unai Emery's really done, is they're really going to stretch that shape as best they can.
Diaby has looked great for them in preseason in a couple matches he's been with them.
Diaby? Well. Yeah. No, I mean, I'm not saying that they don't have good players, and they definitely couldn't hurt us, but there is a way that we can also hurt them as well. And the best way we can do that is just being aggressive, winning the ball back, punishing them, like even when they do have to go long, you just pick up the pieces. Like if we're talking about starting against Chelsea, I wouldn't be surprised if you see a back line of Gomez, Konate, and Van Dijk, and Gomez is the right back, but then you have Trent like in midfield, or like heck, Trent could be like a right midfield or something as well. So there could be a situation where you see a back three where Robinson's pushed up, and you just have this situation where they're saying Gomez man marks Mudryk, Van Dijk and Konate just deal with the rest of the scraps as well. Chelsea have pace, but they also don't have any strikers right now. I mean, obviously they have Nico Jackson, but again, they have no recognized center forward that is going to come and like try and rip us apart.
What about you, Race? Do you think his positioning is? I mean, we've lost the league, guys, by 1 point multiple times, right? And each of these matches counts, whether it's the beginning of the year or towards the end of the year. So, Haler kind of brought it up in the chat as well. We could find ourselves if we don't get that defense kind of squared away, and we can find ourselves out of the race almost quite immediately. Any concerns there? Again, no natural CDM. Robbo still doing Robbo things on the left. And I'm not blaming the player. He's a great player, but tactically,
slander.
I don't think it fits.
The slander.
Yeah. Again, I always say, I've said this before about preseason. I'm not trying to excuse any performances or how we looked or anything, but I just think there is a little bit of a difference in mentality when you approach, a real game, regular season game, as opposed to maybe a preseason. And I don't know how much, necessarily preparation we did for this game at all. But again, it's a newly promoted side to the Bundesliga, so it wasn't like some quality team or super good team. But I just think I'm really just looking forward to the game just to see how we look and how locked in we are, specifically defensively, because it's just it's just a different feeling when especially the game that we have away at Chelsea, our first game of the season. Everyone's going to be juiced up for it, and it's just going to be a very exciting occasion. And I just with Chelsea, they just have so many new players and moving parts, and they're just a mess over there. New manager as well. I think I agree, with Dan that we might set up differently against them, and then going forward, we then see more of what we'll see throughout the rest of the season, because we do have so much time in between these first few games. It's 4 games or whatever in the first month or so. And so there is time to make adjustments and to kind of create things specific, very match specific games, and not, carry over from one to the next. So, having that luxury. Of course, we've had this Chelsea game coming up, so I'm sure, we're planned out, ready for this game. You have all the time in the world to prepare for this first game. So, some of the defensive stuff has certainly been, something to keep an eye on. But I am of the belief that I think, we'll get stuff sorted out in a way. And I could be proven wrong, and we ship in 3 goals versus Chelsea, and then you can come back at me. That's fine. But I just think that there is an element of, once game day comes around, once the boys are properly fired up, I think we'll lock in and get the 3 points there.
Let's hope. It hasn't been going to Stamford Bridge hasn't been that great for us in recent years. Getting besides the 2 cups, not last season but the year before, it's been hard getting a result or even scoring a goal against Chelsea. A lot of 0-0 draws with them. Hoping Sunday we do get off on the right foot and start off with a win. But heading up to an hour now, we're going to call it at this point. I want to thank everyone who has joined the live stream today and has fed the comments here. A lot of friendly faces that we've seen, consistently. Thank you guys so much for joining in. Before you exit, make sure to hit the like and subscribe button. For Dan and Race, I'm Rigo. Thank you guys for joining LSC Transfer Room live stream, providing you the #1 fan-driven content for Liverpool. Have a great night, and YNWA.